Thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartery here today with another episode of Presenting Champions. Today, I'm joined by David Mundell, the Redneck, who recently captured the BKFC Middleweight World Championship. He's hot off the press with that win, fresh out of that win. Dave has basically fought the best of the best in bare knuckle boxing and in MMA as well. Initially comes from an MMA background, including fighting for Titan FC, Bellator, Dana White's looking for a fight series. I think a couple more. Hopefully, I haven't missed any. Transitioned into bare knuckle boxing. Since then, has been making waves in the sport, fighting the best of the best. Obviously, recently won the world championship. Today, we will not only be talking about fighting and about combat, but we will also be talking about the mindset that it takes to become truly great in one of the toughest sports in the world, bare knuckle boxing. So that's enough of me talking about you in third person. Champ, thank you for coming on the show, and it's a real pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So, getting into it from the beginning, I think we'll start with the recent win, then we'll work backwards. How does it feel to be world champion?
It feels good, man. You know, I worked hard, so I feel like it was much deserved.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talk to us a little bit about like what's been happening in terms of the recognition you've been getting. Your phone's probably blowing up. You're probably getting stopped in the street. Like, I'd just love to talk about the reception that you're receiving from the fans since becoming champion, you know?
It's I get a lot more messages and stuff like that, but it's right back to everyday life for me. I mean, I'm back to work and doing my stuff, so not much has changed. Just the title, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the fight itself and how it all went down. I'd like to go back to just before the fight, and like the build up to it and everything, and just get your thoughts on how you were preparing, how you were feeling physically and mentally going into the fight. And I think that that's something that people may have seen on your social media, but it's a little bit overlooked as well, like immediately. So, how did it feel to be heading towards a world title fight at that time?
I mean, honestly, it was just another fight to me. You know, I train really hard for all my fights because I don't want to lose at all, period. You know, so I make sure that you know, I don't get outworked. That um I just I don't ever want to create any doubt for myself, you know. So the harder I push and train, the less, worry in the fight.
Absolutely, absolutely amazing. And obviously, talk to us about the fight itself. Now, I know obviously a lot of people watching this will have seen it, including myself. Obviously, we've seen the fight, but at the same time, your memories from the fight itself, anything that stands out, and also, I'd like to just get your thoughts on what goes through your mind in that moment. I mean, I know you say that nothing's changed. You're very humble, very low key about this, and I respect that a lot, by the way. But in that moment when you realize you've won, you're the new world champion, what goes through your mind in a moment like that? I mean, how can you explain that to somebody who's not had the experience, you know?
Um, I guess in a way it's kind of surreal, you know. Everyone keeps asking me if it has hit me yet. You know, you're a world champ, and I'm like, I guess it hasn't, because I mean, I can't express enough. Like, I feel the same. You know, I go in there, I work hard every day. I felt like I was a champ already. I already felt like I could beat anyone in the division. You know, and a few of the divisions actually. So getting that win, it was just, to me, what was supposed to happen.
Mm. That makes total sense. In all fairness, a lot of champions that I interview, they do share that same outlook, that same philosophy on it. If that makes sense, you're like it's already happened. Visualizing and feeling like you're already there. It's obviously so important because people mention it over and over again. But incredible achievement. Once in a lifetime, in a way. Although I believe there'll be the best is yet to come for you as well. So there'll probably be more belts and everything like that. Talking about that, I mean, let's talk about the future real quick, like, in terms of what you're aiming for next, what's lighting your fire now. I know you're very low key. I've read other interviews you give where you say, like a year from now, I'll be in the same place, but with more belts type of thing. So maybe that sums it up. But just talk to us a little bit about your future dreams and goals and plans, basically, you know?
You know, the whole thing with fighting was, you know, I wanted to build something to where, one day I didn't have to work, you know, maybe open my own gym up, you know, teach a few classes and let it be self-sustained, run itself, you know, have a income and be able to just spend time with my family. So I think I have quite a few more years ahead of me, you know, fighting and proving myself some more. But hopefully, goal with all that, you know, relax, hang out with the family, and sit on the beach somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like a good plan. I got to be honest with you, and definitely, you know, something that will, I believe, will come true because you're putting the work in, you're 100% dedicated, and this championship is obviously some people will see it as the top of the mountain. For you, I see it as like sort of a sign of things to come. Like, you know, you'll win more championships as well. I mean, I've interviewed some guys like Palomino and people like that, you know, earlier on in their careers, and you look at where they are now. I think it'll be the same thing for you. So I also want to talk about the journey that it took you to get here. Basically, obviously you started off in an MMA background, you switched to bare knuckle boxing. So we're going obviously a little bit back in time now. Talk to us a little bit about basically what inspired you to do that and where the idea to switch from MMA to bare knuckle first came from.
You know, it was like the more I think about this, like little things pop up and stuff, and I feel like I was, you know, I wanted so badly to, you know, make it to the UFC, and I still want to go there. But I think I was 11-5 was my record, and it just seemed like it was so hard to find a fight. Nobody wanted to fight me, or I would actually get a fight in front of Dana. I'd win and still wouldn't get on, you know. So I was kind of losing motivation a little bit. And then BKFC was coming to Tampa, and it was going to be like their first show, I think, in Florida or something like that. And so my coach was like, "Hey, you should do it." You know, I was just like, "Yeah, you know, why not? Let's make some history." And I'm glad I took that, you know, a step to do that just to get the notch underneath my belt, even though I was only planning on doing one and it wound up turning into this. But it relit a fire, you know, and it brought me right back to, you know, wanting to train, like being motivated and just pushing hard all over again, gave me a reason to fight.
Absolutely, yeah, makes sense, makes total sense. So you only planned on doing one. So in the beginning, this whole thing wasn't like planned out. It wasn't like laid out for you then.
No, not at the time. You know, I came in and I just, you know, you're never sure, you know, so I wanted to see what it was like, you know. It was everyone is like, "Oh, you're not wearing gloves, you're crazy," you know. And in a way it's kind of intimidating, you know. So I was like, well, let me just try it out, let me see what it's like, you know. I gotta at least give it a shot. And like I said, the very first fight I was like, okay, this is cool, like I want to continue to do this.
Yeah, and it went from there. That's incredible. Let's talk about a few of the highlights of your career that have happened so far that I think people will enjoy hearing about in your own words. Obviously, do you have favorite fights aside from obviously winning the championship recently? That's got to be up there. I know you, like I've said already, you're very humble about your achievements, but are there any from the bare knuckle fights you've had, particularly that you look back on and you think, you know, that was something special.
I mean, the only other one that stands out is, you know, when I fought Hector. Even though they said I lost, I don't feel like I did. I feel like they brought me into that fight expecting him to just be able to run me over, knock me out. And very early on in the round, very early on in the first round, he figured out, you know, that wasn't going to happen. Um, so what stands out about that fight so much to me is, one, I got to fight somebody I used to look up to. You know, I used to watch him fight in the UFC, and all of a sudden, like now he's about to be my opponent. It's kind of like a, you know, I'm meant to be here type of moment. Um, and two, I feel like I really showed that I belonged. You know, like go the very first exchange with him, I broke my left hand, so I had to fight him the rest of the fight with just my lead hand. And I feel like I did very well keeping him on the outside, not letting him come in. And he's known to like just run in there and charge people and go crazy. And he wouldn't do that with me. And you know, whatever anybody wants to say is like, there's a reason why. It's because he didn't want to get tagged, you know. So that's I guess that's the one that stands out the most.
Absolutely, yeah, fair enough. I thought that one might come up somewhere along the line, but it's really good to get your mention on that. Now, another couple of things here with the bare knuckle side of things. So that's your favorite fights. Toughest fights is something that people always want to hear about in sort of every interview I do. That's combat sports related anyway. This I know is quite a big question because, as I mentioned before, you've been in there with some great names. Who stands out for being? I mean, it sounds like the Hector that was pretty tough with the Hector fight. I mean, with the broken hand and stuff. But any others that stand out for you?
Well, so I think after the Hector fight, I was about maybe like a year and 8 months before I got back in there last December in 2021. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I think his name is Stanley Grusa. I'm not sure. I feel bad, but that kid was tough. I went into that fight completely expecting to just take him out in the first round, and he actually wound up flipping me, putting me to a knee. I get back up, and then I just started, you know, firing off shots, and he was just eating them. He was eating them, taking them, and he was still trying to come right back. And he was definitely a tough opponent. You know, it was fun, and we went all 5 rounds just slugging.
Yeah, that was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant fight. Yeah, I know. I don't know how to say his name either, to be honest. But he's a great fighter, Romanian.
Yeah,
I think that was his. I think that was his first bare knuckle fight with you as well. And he really made a statement. So absolutely amazing, and big shout out to him. Sorry if you're watching this if we butchered your name, but nonetheless, you know, great fighter and maximum respect. Another thing to touch on here, and I think people will be curious about this. Obviously, you fought in MMA and you fought in bare knuckle boxing. Is bare knuckle boxing more painful when you get hit, or is it not? I've asked this of a lot of guys, and some people say yes, some people say no. A lot of people say no, which it looks like you're going to do as well. What are
yeah.
your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's I both MMA and in the bare knuckle. Like when we get punched, like I guess I just don't feel it. Maybe the adrenaline or whatever you want to call. We might see a flash if we get hit really hard, but I don't definitely doesn't hurt worse. There's no pain to it. The only difference between the two fights is we seem to get cut open a lot more, being that it's the knuckles. Uh, so maybe a couple days after, you have to deal with some stitches, some wounds, but it's not bad.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there's a lot of sort of debate around that. A few people have said that it's more painful, but most people have said they don't really feel it until like waking up the next morning or whatever. And even so, it's a lot like anything else, you know, MMA or kickboxing or whatever, you know.
You'd wake up the next couple days and you'd have, you know, sore spots all over your body. You know, it would be your back or somewhere in your leg, or some joints would be hurting or something. Where with this BKFC, it's just, you know, wake up and my eye hurts a little bit, you know. But I feel like it's a lot less taxing than MMA was for me. I feel like it's a little bit easier to get ready for. I've only got to worry about punches, and I don't know. I just enjoy it.
Absolutely, yeah, makes total sense. Another thing is obviously the sport itself, and it would be good to get your thoughts on this as well, because the sport of bare knuckle boxing is growing all over the world, especially with obviously BKFC leading the growth of the sport with that, and they're doing shows in Thailand, they're doing shows in the USA, they're doing shows over where I am in the UK as well, and it's, you know, it's really going global. So your thoughts on like how the sport has grown since you've been involved, because obviously you've been involved a little while, and obviously where you can see it growing in the future. The way I'm looking at it, obviously you've jumped into this and it's, well, it's the fastest growing combat sport in the world. What are your thoughts on that side of it?
I I can't even really say I'm surprised, because honestly, like the way they put on their shows and the way they market themselves and the sport itself, being that it's 2 minute rounds, a little bit faster paced. You know, they expect their fighters to go out there and, you know, push, and they express that that's what they want. They offer bonuses, they pay well, you know, so they're just doing it right, you know. So I definitely see them getting huge, you know, just as big as UFC, if not, bigger.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm with you on that. I mean, they're definitely changing the face of combat sports as well, because it's not just bare knuckle boxing, but it's then the impact that's having on everything else. So really good to get your thoughts on that. Moving into the last couple of things with this, obviously training wise, people are going to be curious to know what your training looks like. Now, obviously with this, I don't want you to give anything away that people can use. But in terms of like what your training looks like, if you train bare knuckle or not, or if you wear gloves or what you do, just like a little bit of the behind the scenes type of thing, you know?
Like I don't. I'll tell you exactly how I train, because I don't feel like it wouldn't matter.
Mm.
Getting ready for somebody as myself is a task in itself. So 90% of the time we're wearing gloves. When we spar with each other, we're wearing boxing gloves. When we drill, we're wearing boxing gloves. Now, obviously, when we shadow box, you don't need gloves on unless you just want it for the weight or whatever reason. But when we hit the bag, I actually have my buddy Jared Warren had got me a pair first, and then I just went through those and had to order another one. I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but they're just a piece of leather, basically like a mitt. So there's no padding in it. And all it does is keep your hands from getting ripped open when you hit the bag, but the impact, the raw impact still there. When I hit mitts, I wear those as well. It gives you, I really feel like it helps you learn the distancing. I noticed like back in MMA days, when we had hard sparring, we would use big boxing gloves, and then we would transfer over to wearing MMA gloves, and all of a sudden nobody could hit each other, whether it be because they're too scared or because their distancing was completely different. So I just went ahead, take those things into play. And I try to also, if I get the chance, I like to spar with MMA gloves on. This way we're still protecting each other's face, not cutting each other open. But again, that range is just different. So it helps a lot by being able to do little things like that. But come fight time, everything just falls into place regardless.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just good to give that a mention, because I know obviously you do post about this and there are things that people can see, but it's still sort of behind the scenes for a lot of people in a lot of ways. They see the fight and they don't see what goes on behind the fight. So the last couple of things before we wrap this up, what people's attention spans are like these days. I touched on your MMA career, and I know obviously you've moved away from that, and I know that your focus is solely on the bare knuckle scene, and you're going to get bigger and bigger with that. I just want to give a mention to the MMA thing, because I still think you've got some good accomplishments there. Do you have any sort of proudest moments from that, or is that really something that it didn't sort of live up to your expectations, hence you switched? Or is there anything you look back on that is special? Because I still think there's some great achievements there, but in your own words, what do you think of that side of things?
Um, I don't really have much to say about it, as
Yeah.
there's things I look back on that I go, I wish I would have took it a little more seriously. I wish I would have trained the way I knew I was supposed to. This way I didn't have a doubt going into some of those fights, and maybe some of the outcomes would have been different. But if I ever get a chance to do it again, I'll make sure I do it right.
Absolutely. Well, that's still an option as well. I mean, I know you said about the UFC earlier and things like that, but as you win more titles and move forward, who knows what other doors may open, So absolutely. But I just wanted to give it a mention, because I know like the bare knuckle is what you're known for, and it's what you're really, making waves and blowing everyone away. But just wanted to touch on the MMA. So let's just see if we missed anything. We talked about your future plans. We've talked about, most of the previous fight. So I suppose the last thing to get your thoughts on is what you would say to your fans and your supporters around the world, people who watch you fight, whether it's obviously through streaming the fight, through attending the fight, people who send you encouraging messages on social media, whatever form that support comes in. What would you say to people out there who basically encourage you to do what you do, if that makes sense?
Just thank you. Like without you guys, like none of this would be going on. It wouldn't be worth it. You guys help pump me up, help keep me pushing forward, and there's a lot more to come. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to come. The future is very, very bright. And you know what? When you've won another belt or another couple of belts, then we'll do another one of these and give the fans an update. As long as that's something you fancy doing. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy obviously the rest time, enjoy the holidays, time with your family, whatever it is. And then next year, 2023, is going to be a big year. So we're all looking forward to seeing you back in action, basically.
Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I say, thank you for your time. Thank you for being an open book and sharing everything you've shared. And I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this. Thank you.
Brother, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.